Cave World by Viagra Boys, released on July 8th, 2022 on the label Year 0001. I don't really know how to say that. So just Year 001. I don't know. Year 1. There we go. Recorded in 3 different studios in the native Sweden, but I have a difficult time pronouncing them. Robot Brigade, Silent Studio, got that one, and Rick's Mix and Forget. That's my best shot. Deep apologies to anyone from Stockholm or anyone who is comfortable with the language, as we will probably be butchering it. This is the Swedish band's 3rd studio album. This was like an immediate post-punk, synth-punk, dance-punk. Let's just call it punk classic. And I would go so far as to call it one of the greatest party albums to come out in recent years. It's about our baser impulses, and much of the album's lyrics, the content is really written either from the perspective of or about these seedy, paranoid characters who have devolved into a much more primitive version of human beings. Welcome to Self-Titled. My name is Seth Sparks, and I am joined by my friend Jordan DeWeese. Buddy, thanks for joining me. You and I have been fans of this band for quite some time, and we talk about them a lot. They've come up in I think they came up in our best of 2025 albums list with their most recent album, Viagra Boys, which is a great album. But yeah, they've come up in context of our Ween conversation. I think they came up. But when did you come on board with Viagra Boys? Do you remember like the time that you started listening to them?
It was this album, actually, 2022. I think it was the Punk Rock Loser single when it was released, and I really enjoyed it. The music video was pretty cool as well. The whole cowboy western vibe mixed with that music, I loved it. I played that album nonstop whenever it came out, and then I'd go back and listen, to their earlier EPs and then their other albums, and I was completely hooked. And seeing them live is just a damn good experience.
Oh man, yeah, absolutely. It sure is. I think the first thing I heard from them was sports, like because some of the indie channels that I would listen to, I think it was probably like the Sirius XM, Sirius XMU, and they were playing sports a lot in rotation. It's just such a weird song that when you're like working or doing whatever and music's playing and sports is playing, if you've heard that song, if you're watching this episode, you probably know the band enough to know that song. It's like, it's very distinct. It's very funny. And it's just, it's crazy. The lyrics to it are insane, and it's really endearing in that way. So I remember I paid attention then, started following them. And then it was this album in particular that really converted me full time. And then to your point about live shows, there was for me in 2022, they were promoting this album. They were touring with Shame, another band that I'm a big fan of, and they were both in Nashville playing Brooklyn Bowl in 2022. And I was really, I've for that same length of time since like 2018, I've been a fan of Shame, and I really wanted to see them live. And I was kind of there more so for Shame, but they were doing this thing on that tour where they would like swap out like who played first and who played last. Yeah. And Shame played last, which was good because I didn't get to pull any shenanigans, because I will peace out early at a concert. I am no stranger to just hitting the door and getting home early, which is something I've that happens more as I've gotten older, Jordan. But anyway, I went to that show mostly for Shame, but Viagra Boys played first, and it was just so big and raucous and just in your face and completely enthralling. Like it was, I was just like, I knew this band. I was even into this album to the point where I recognized the songs and was really into it. But to see them live, I think is really important if you want a full appreciation of what they offer, and it puts everything into context once you see them live. And I remember like Shame came out and played later, and Shame had a great show. It was way more stripped down, and obviously they're a little bit more of a stripped back band than Viagra Boys. But man, seeing them live was a real experience. The crowd was incredible. And it was just, I mean, they put on an incredible show and the sound was amazing. But anyway, to me, that was the thing that really was like, okay, these guys are legit. And from then on in, I was just like, anybody who would listen, I'm like, listen to Bagger Boys, listen to Bagger Boys. I was a big proponent of the band. Is that what was your experience like seeing them live? Was it kind of similar?
Oh yeah, it's in the most perfect way, just raw, uncontained chaos. Because Sebastian Murphy's up there and he's living his best life. Like he's like fully shirtless. He's covered in tats. He came out in an elf hat out onto the stage and he'll dance around and just he'll just go nuts. He just doesn't care. And I think that's a it's a decent not a decent that's a great way to be a performer, just going up there with no care in the world of what anyone thinks of you. You're just there to give a show, and oh, he gave it. It was an amazing concert. Uh, we'll talk about it, but Viagra Boys has a lot of shrimp references, and there were people in shrimp costumes at the concert. And it's pretty hot in there when you have hundreds of people in this Marathon Music Works in
Summer
Nashville.
Marathon. Yeah.
Yeah. But no, I had a damn good time. It was amazing. I took
Oh,
off
man.
my earbuds mid show, and I probably shouldn't have done that, but it was worth it.
I think I was rocking the earplugs on that too. I was protective of my hearing, but man, it almost didn't matter. Like it
Yeah,
permeates like whatever blockage you have in your ears. When I
yeah,
think about the Vagger Boys, I'm thinking about like artists reading up on the critiques of this album, or really just the reviews of this album more so than like thoughtful think pieces. I don't think there were a ton of those out there, but when I'm thinking about artists who like Vagger Boys are building on, and one of the more appropriate comparisons, I think, especially for this album, even in general, is Devo. And I'm obviously not the first person to draw that comparison. I saw that pop up a few different places, but I do think it's worth touching on just briefly. I also am a Devo fan, but both those bands, both Devo and Viagra Boys, share this preoccupation with the de-evolution of the modern person. I mean, that's
yeah,
literally where Devo got their name, devolution.
yeah,
And both play this high energy, often dancey style of punk music. Both are equally comfortable leaning into both guitars and synthesizers. But a lot of bands from like the late 70s punk, post punk movement have sensibilities I think live in the same sort of sonic space. To a certain extent, Talking Heads, I think Suicide, that really comes
suicide
to mind.
definitely. Yeah,
Absolutely. I mean, it's just that one I think really screamed like across the board,
you're,
vocals,
yeah,
synthesizer, the groove,
yeah,
all of that stuff. There was this cool band called the Units, like that's reminiscent for me too. I hear some Gang of Four in there. But a lot of these bands, and then later bands, I think that fit in a similar mold, like um, LCD Sound System and Rapture. But what makes Vagger Boys so much fun is this sense of humor that they throw into the mix. And when we discussed Ween, as I mentioned earlier, you brought up Vagger Boys as a band that shared the same attitude, and I'm glad you did, because I've had that thought before you mentioned it. When just thinking about lyrics alone, it's hard to explain because musically, Ween and Vagger Boys are very different. And even if you put their lyrics side by side, you just read them, I think there would be a lot of differences. But
yeah,
you would notice this like twisted sense of humor, this profanity, and this near obsession with recurring themes. And I think of like Ween's Browner lyrics and the Viagra Boy shrimp fascination. To your point,
yeah.
um, what do you know, and what can you tell us about the Viagra Boys shrimp obsession?
I I really don't know, and that's they. It's not just shrimp; they use food a lot. Like
They
even in
do,
the new
yeah.
album, food is mentioned quite a bit. And I think he even talked about that a little bit. Um, One of these songs, they talk about someone stealing a jacket from Shrimp City Beach, something 1993. I can't remember the year. I got a sticker at the concert, and it's on my water bottle called Shrimp Tech Enterprises. And if I remember reading this right, I think that is a company that they own.
That's
Shrimp
great.
Tech Enterprises.
I remember when I saw them live, they went on a big, like, he had like a 10-minute monologue about shrimp. And
Oh yeah,
like, it was wild, man. But it's like he leans into it. I think I saw an interview with him talking about the newer album where he's like, I kind of had to find a way to shoehorn shrimp in there because I hadn't mentioned them yet in the lyrics.
yeah.
It's like obligatory at this point.
Uh, Even on the album, the newest one, the Best in Show Part 4, it's just a spoken word, just never ending piece with music behind it. It's crazy as hell, and I
Yeah.
haven't been able to crack it yet, but it's a fun song.
Yeah, I'm with you. I don't quite understand it, and I think that's part of the appeal. Is like I don't know what he's on about, but I'm into it. And ultimately, I know I just threw a lot of bands out there of like who I think are like you could see as being influences, and I don't want to go overboard with that comparison game, but I do think it says a lot about Viagra Boys that you need to pull from like several different worlds to paint a picture of what this band offers, despite all of like the other parallels to other artists. Viagra Boys have a really distinct sound from early on in their career up until today. I mean, within a few bars of any song that it's them. And at the
Yeah,
very least, like as soon as Sebastian Murphy starts singing, uh, you're gonna know that you're listening to the Viagra Boys. Their sound is very thick. The bass and the drums are very prominent, and you have this like fairly crunchy guitar chugging away throughout a lot of the songs. So the guitar is also very much a color instrument in the band too,
yeah.
and often veers into this sort of psychedelic voice. Then you have
Saxophone.
these synthesizers from Elias Youngquist that are critical. Not only add this pulsing energy, but they really have add these off kilter layers to the sound. And then you have like this cherry on top with Oscar Carl's saxophone, which infuses like this weird,
Freak
crazy,
jazz and
wild, free jazz energy.
yeah.
Like it's really this singular mix where the sum is far greater than the parts. It's I don't know. Have you tried to describe the sound to anybody? You just got to listen to them. What do you do when you're introducing someone to Viagra Boys?
I have my friend, I can't remember this guy's name. Him and his wife used to love going to festivals and everything and listening to like, do you call it EDM?
Yeah.
The whole, yeah. Um, I tried to explain to him like it's kind of that, but it's dirty and it's also classy at the same time. Like I don't know how else to explain it. Uh, but he listens to this one dude who just he'll go out in the street with like a DJ set and start playing and just start screaming like random lyrics into a microphone and stuff like that. I can't remember the guy's name, but I'm like, yeah, if you like him, I think you'll like this guy. I don't think I ever got him around to listening to Viagra Boys. They just had kids, so it's kind of I understand it's a little hard to get into
Oh yeah.
something new.
It is. You have to carve out your own time to make that happen when you have little kids. But the name alone kind of like telling someone like, oh, who are you listening to? I mean, you're always going to get a sideways glance when you say the name, but that's part of the fun of this band
Yeah,
is like
I
the
said it.
I don't give a shit attitude. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like you're just like every time you talk about us, you're going to have to say the words Viagra Boys.
So our best of 2025, I was wearing my Viagra Boys shirt, and my sister watched the video, and she's like, "What shirt are you wearing in that video?" I had to explain to her what it was. She's like, "Okay." Like just the letters "okay" in the text, that's it. Even lowercase, like it didn't matter.
Yeah, no, that says it all. Gosh, I know what a bold statement as a band name. Where did that name come from?
So he's doing well now, but Sebastian Murphy, the front man, he had a really bad drug addiction, amphetamine and everything. And just this is from him, so I don't know if this is a true health thing, but like if you're on amphetamines, like some parts of the male body just do not work in certain scenarios. And so he always had a friend that had like bottles of Viagra, and they just couldn't come up with the name. And he's like, we had dirtier names than that. And he won't say what they were. And the guy's like, why don't you just call yourselves Viagra Boys? And like immediately, that's the boys were born. So
I love that story. And I
I
also
mean,
love
heck,
this,
there's a name
like,
called Butthole Surfers too. So like, I
yeah,
think
that's
Viagra
true.
Boys isn't as bad as Butthole Surfers.
It's very true. Yeah. And, there's a shared sensibility there too with butthole servers. I mean, that being said, butthole servers, like if you go back and you listen to their catalog, it's a lot of it. I mean, I think a safe word would be for most audiences. I think it can be challenging music. Whereas I think Viagra Boys are actually fairly
Oh
accessible.
yeah,
I feel like their music
I
is
think they
like,
are too.
I think it's very easy to listen to, and it's fun, and it's just a lot of good energy in the
Going out to
music
the
itself,
club or
despite the
something.
insanity of the lyrics.
Yeah. No, it's I've tried my best. I'm like, listen, you'll like them. Like you can't tell me you can't put on a song and you're just kind of grooving down the road to it. Like Ain't No Thief,
Yeah,
Return to Monkey. These songs we're
yeah.
about to go over. Like I've broken my back doing twists, doing dishes, listening to this stuff. So
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's good. It's great. It's great dishwashing music. It's great driving music. It's great party music. So, and to that point, this whole era of bands, and I kind of think of bands almost like as like classes, right? Like this class of band, as far as like when they came out and like who their colleagues are. But the post punk class of like the mid to late 2010s, right? The teens. Viagra Boys are part of this great era of post-punk bands that emerged at that during that time. But I mean, it's like a huge list of bands like Squid and Pro Martyr and Fontaine's DC and Idols and Shame, Black Midi, Dry Cleaning, Goat Girl, Black Country New Road. I mean, you could probably throw
yep.
Geese in there too if you wanted to. Um,
Yeah.
if you wanted to extend that even further back to like the late 2000s and early teens and look at precursors to that movement, you could throw in Ice Age or Sleaford Mods, Parquet Courts. I should probably stop there because I just started naming off all these bands, but it's just this really cool era of music, one that's still happening for the most part. I mean,
Hmm.
most of the bands are still putting out really good stuff. And out of all of those bands, I think Viagra Boys are in the running for the most fun and definitely the most funny of the bunch. But more than any other band in their class, you could hire Viagra Boys to play a party, even a party where
Yeah.
people don't know who they are, and it would be amazing. Like it would be a
Yeah.
total hit. And the thing that's really cool about this album is I think that Cave World in some ways amplifies that big energetic sound of the band, and it makes it this even more of like this wall of sound. It's more focused on that specific gear, like just full throttle party
Hmm.
gear. Even more so I think than Streetworms or Welfare Jazz. When you think of a song like Worms off of Streetworms or Into the Sun off of Welfare Jazz, you have a few changes of pace, and
Yeah.
there's like a little bit of that in Cave World, but Cave World's very much just like this distilled
Yeah.
version of what they're best at, right?
Yeah. It's nonstop from begin. There's a few instrumental tracks in between.
Yep.
But yeah, it's nonstop from track one all the way down to the end of the album. Uh, the deluxe version, I can't remember the names of the songs, but the deluxe version has some songs that are a little bit slower. And they're
Yeah.
good at that. Like Ween, they're good at these slower songs. It's stuff you don't really like Medicine for Horses in the
Yes.
new album. Coming from like the energy they give throughout the whole album and then changing to that, it's kind of a breather, but it's beautiful. I think they do it perfectly. But as for Cave World, outside of the deluxe edition, yeah, it's just a charging, just dance anthem with
Yeah.
very deep layered meaning to it.
I totally agree. I have to say, and I really agree with what you just said. I have to say that I like it when Dagger Boys deviate from that sound, and that's a perfect Medicine for Horses off of the most recent album is a perfect example. And at the same time, like I do appreciate that this album, for the most part, just goes for it from start to
Yeah,
finish. Like it's kind of balls to the wall. Like here's what we
yeah,
do. Here's what you could kind of expect if you go and see the show, and just distilled down into however long this album is.
yeah. No, it's a wild, fun ride.
All right, let's jump into this thing track by track here. Number one, Baby Criminal. What a great name to a song. He used to be a baby. Now he's just a criminal. This song kicks off the album with the full force of the Viagra Boys. It also establishes, okay, and I'm not going to do this for too long, Jordan, but indulge me for a second. It establishes one of the classic chord change moves that you see in Viagra Boys music, which is you're in somewhere, right? You're in your home
Hmm.
base chord, your main home base chord, and then it's going to go up to either the four chord or the like the flat three, or if you're Baby Criminal, this is kind of an E minor, so it's just a three
Yeah,
chord. But it's like if you're an E minor, you go up to an A and then down to a G, or you go to a G to an A. Like that is, I spent a lot of the prep for this album like playing along with the music, and it's very, it's that they know what works and they use those things, they use those devices over and over. I think it's great, and great lyrics to this song too. A parent kind of lamenting the fact that their sweet baby is now just a criminal. It's it's like
yeah.
it's a wild theme to this song.
Sebastian Murphy uses satire in a really purposeful way, and he's been said that he's not afraid if people take him the wrong way or not. He's like, because in reality, they kind of come off as stupid and shoot themselves in the foot whenever they either disagree with something or even agree with something that I'm saying. He's
Mm,
like, I could have someone listening to this whole album thinking that I'm on their side, but in reality, I'm playing a persona like someone else. So here he's playing, it's Jimmy, who's just, you know, a terrible baby, apparently, whose parents did not raise him the best of ways. I think it even goes into the point where he's building a nuclear reactor in his basement or something in the song. And I read somewhere that it's actually based on a true story. A 17-year-old Boy Scout broke down a bunch of elements from household products and caused a severe contamination spill in his neighborhood of nuclear
oh
material.
wow.
Yeah. And that just kind of gives credit to Murphy as well. A lot of these lyrics come off really absurd, and
Mm,
I don't mean this way, but also dumb. I
yeah,
just, but he's smart about it. I don't know how
yeah,
else to explain that.
yeah.
Uh,
It's very
if he
subversive
takes
in
the
that way.
Yeah, if he takes the time to go deeper into this stuff, then yeah, he's a good songwriter. I mean, I
Yeah.
never knew anything about a kid building a nuclear bomb in his basement and being a 17-year-old Boy Scout.
That's so funny. You're right too that there are a few different ways that he does it in this throughout this album, but I mean he's hitting themes, the same themes repeatedly, and sometimes he is the character that he's lampooning, and
Hmm.
sometimes he's talking at them, and we'll talk through some of examples of that. But like however it goes, it's like he clearly had something very specific on his mind here, and it's not. I don't think it was new to this album necessarily, but he definitely honed in on it. And I mean, you think about where we're at, 2022. They recorded this album and probably wrote a lot of it in 2021 and probably 2020. We were on the heels of COVID-19. That's taken the world by storm, and that has also, especially here in the United States. I don't know how much of this they faced in Sweden, but obviously Sebastian Murphy has a history in the United States. You know, he has that part of him that is very familiar with American culture. So I'm sure he was plugged into it. But there were a lot of debates. It was very contentious about like what with the vaccines and with the masks and all of this stuff, and it led to this division, and it brought out people's opinions in ways that were I don't know, very vocal and forgive me if anyone shares some of the beliefs, but like paranoid and
Yeah.
like really in a strange headspace that also happens to coincide with a time when this whole now we have a name for it and people like to talk about the manosphere and all this stuff, but it's like this hyper masculine thing where your Andrew Tates of the world and like those people are
Yeah.
starting to like get followers and they're starting to become more popular. I mean, maybe they've been around for a while, but like there's all of this stuff exploding, and I feel like that's what is kicking around in Sebastian Murphy's head when he
Oh yeah.
starts diving into the lyrics of that. Is that a fair assessment?
I totally agree. I I really do. I think on down the way we'll see that more and more, especially with the paranoia and toxic masculinity.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean that's what he uses satire for. Just criticism, and he uses the absurdity to satire. Modern society,
Yeah.
and just also kind of social collaboration. I guess you want to say.
And then so when you get into the second song here on this album, this is like the first of three short tracks by producer DJ Hayden, however you want to say it, aka Fabian Berglund. I like these. I like what they add to the album. Very weird. I don't have a ton to say. I mean, they're all pretty short and pretty to the point, but
Yeah.
adds to the overall atmosphere of there. So that's all I got on that. But
Yeah.
then we get into Troglodyte. One of my favorite Viagra Boys songs. This is again, just like we were talking about, this is a scathing critique of that hyper masculine caricature that is not only so prominent on this album, but again, very much part of the world we live in. And it was
Yeah.
definitely a big talking point at that time. I have to admit, I like takedowns like this, especially when I agree with the critiquers. So like
Oh
I'm all
yeah.
on board for this. But yeah, I don't know. Where are you at on Troglodyte? Is this one of your favorites?
It's one of my favorites. I just love how he says troglodyte in the verse.
Yeah,
I'm not going to do it, but if you can just think about how, and if anybody wants to listen to it, he's an
yeah,
American born. I think he was born in California and then moved
yeah.
to Sweden, but he's a huge Waylon Jennings fan. And you
Mm,
can kind of, I don't know if you listen to a lot of Waylon Jennings or if you know what he
yeah,
sounds like, you can kind of hear that a little bit.
yeah.
If I may be saying that wrong,
Hey, I
but
love that.
here, Punk Rock Loser, but on Troglodyte, like whenever he says Troglodyte in the chorus, I fucking love it, and I
It's
don't
great.
know why. At the concert, of course, getting a little political, we one of the guitarists had Free Palestine on the back of his guitars, but before he started the song, Seb's like, I'm from America. I now live in Sweden, and it's hard not to recognize that, this country is kind of becoming a fascist state. And he's like, song is for them. And he's like, fuck fascist. And they just lead on into it. I wrote this because whenever I'm like researching for this and everything, and I'm listening to the song, I'll just write something funny. And I totally agree that I think this is a good song to play at your right wing uncle's January 6th celebration cookout.
This is a great one. It's a classic for that.
Yeah.
That boy, I want to hear that playlist, Jordan, if you ever make it. And this would be first one on the list. No, absolutely, it's true, and it is. You're right. It's very political, and it's kind of it's in the disguise of silly, frivolous, maybe profane stuff. But really, it's
The point
interesting what he's
across
doing.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Musically here, last time I'm going to do this, they're in F sharp here. And they do that again. They use that 3 to the 4 move. So they're in F sharp. They're going to go up to A. They're going to go to B. They do that a lot throughout the song, a couple other chords in there. I'm going to leave the music theory stuff here though, because that's really not what makes Viagra Boys compelling. I've always found it interesting to know like the musical devices that artists gravitate towards, even if they're doing it subconsciously. But I'm going to leave it there. I'm not going to keep going back to this every song because it would get a little monotonous, but it's also not really what we're here for Viagra Boys, right? Like it's not necessarily the thing. But you'd mentioned Punk Rock Loser, the next track on the album. It's often the case that the more pop friendly singles from Viagra Boys tend to resonate the least with me in the beginning. And that's kind of what I experienced when I heard this one. I was like, hey, yeah, this is good. But I'm interested to hear what else is on the album because I
Mhm.
kind of have that experience with Viagra Boys. Now I've heard it a lot. I've kind of come to like the song more and more, and it makes perfect sense though as like a single from this album. It's very accessible. I think a lot of people could
Yeah.
get into this. You could hear this on the radio, if the radio played it. The lyrics to this feel actually a little bit more self-deprecating and
Mhm.
autobiographical. I think Sebastian Murphy takes a lot of shots at this in this album, but I do think some of those shots are kind of aimed at himself.
Yeah,
I don't know if that's true or not, but
it
it's
is.
possible. Also, like you mentioned, love the video to the song. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Anybody sees the music video, it's like it's like if Viagra Boys did the music to Deadwood or something. It's like a literal like Western shootout thing, and he just does not look good in the cowboy outfit, but
Yeah,
he's like on stage, he's living his best life.
that's right.
He is taking shots at himself, like
Yeah,
in the past and everything. It's just kind of he's just kind of looking at himself. He's like, there's always that one guy who thinks he's the best in the world, but in reality, he's a total asshole, and that's what
mm.
this is. And one of my favorite lyrics on the album, on the yeah, is it's what was it? It's promethazine with a little bit of Seven Up. This ain't juice in my cup. It's promethazine with a little bit of Seven Up.
That's
Just
great.
off the wall and random, yeah.
Oh
Um,
man, so good.
Being accessible, Sarah and a few of her other teachers from school went to go get lunch before I went and saw them in Viagra Boys in October or November. And they're like, "What concert are you going to?" And she played this song, and the two teachers she was with, they're like, "Yeah, we like this." And I'm like, "What?" And they aren't the type of people to like that at all. So,
Right.
so yeah,
I
it
do
is
think.
accessible.
Yeah, I think it is. What did Sarah think about the show? Did she? Where is she now on Viagra Boys?
No,
I get it. Hey, it's not for everybody.
she did. They started Man Made of Meat at the show, and she's like, "I actually like this one," and I'm like, "What?" She's like, "I like the beat to it and everything." I'm like, "Okay," but I don't think she remembered the OnlyFans reference in the middle of the song about the guys about his subscribing to his the person's mother's OnlyFans.
OnlyFans. So good. And then we get into creepy crawlers. Great dramatic rendering of this paranoid narrator. They're putting microchips in the vaccines. I love that hysterical sort of voice that he puts on all the time. Again, I mentioned Suicide earlier. This track feels like it could just be like straight from Suicide, which
It
means,
is.
I guess, that it's weird and it sounds cool. One of the strangest tracks on the album, but I like this. I like creepy crawlies. I think it's got good energy going on.
Oh yeah. So speaking of instrumentation and everything, and then Suicide, a lot of the Suicide songs I've listened to kind of start off kind of soft. I don't know if I'm explaining this the right way, and then just build up to a certain point and then just let loose with the beat and everything. Am I
Mm.
getting that right when I hear this?
There's
When I
some
think
of
of
that, and
Suicide?
yeah,
Okay.
there's some of that. There's also like Suicide's also really good at just like I think it's because a lot of times they would use drum machines and stuff, but it's like kind of setting a gear, and then just like letting it rip, like Ghost Rider. Ghost Rider kind
Yeah.
of like sets you off and you just kind of ride this thing all the way
Yeah.
through and they use other dynamics like his voice or the explosiveness of the synthesizers or
Mhm.
whatever to kind of like amplify it up even though you're kind of on this it feels almost like you're on this train that's still going and stuff's coming at you in weird ways. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think that's a fair way to describe
No.
it.
I think this is one of his spoken word monologues, but I mean, you can completely understand where he's coming from because I mean, there were people like this. Uh, I even wrote this is a song about the man who played Jesus in Passion of the Christ because Jim Caviezel has this mentality of like, oh yeah, kids are being taken and then drained of their adrenochrome for people to be made look younger.
Right.
Which, in all honesty, the more I see pictures of people in the top 1%, I don't think it's working if that's a thing. Like,
It's true. They would have
someone,
access to that, right?
oh yeah, someone
Yeah.
shared a picture of the board members of the now Trump Kennedy Arts Center for the Arts. And have you ever seen Harry Potter?
Yeah, yeah. It's been a while, but
So
yeah.
someone made a comment that all these board members with everything they're putting on their faces and everything, they look like the goblins at Green God's
Dude, there's a look, right? Like there's even like a name for maybe not that specific look, but there's obviously the Mar-a-Lago look that people talk about. But like, yeah, there's
It's
you would think like if there's some regenerating power out there, they would have the
yeah.
line on that.
You guys are you guys aren't using it right.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, I mean, he's just taking on the persona of like just some crazy nut job who
yeah.
probably used his wife's underwear as a mask during anti-masking ordeal in 2020 and 2021. If you remember the
It's
funny videos and pictures of people going to grocery stores wearing random things as masks.
yeah.
Yeah.
God, what a weird time. And there is this like vaccines are recurring. The fact that
Hmm.
there's someone out there doing something malicious to like
Hmm.
everyday products or everything that we're like that is a constant thing here that
Yeah.
he picked up on. I mean, obviously he didn't create that, he's commenting on it, but
Yeah.
yeah, it's a good boy, he riffs on that throughout this album, and it's when you're just listening to it, I think it just feels funny until you start to read it, and you're like, this is actually a little heavier than
Oh
at
yeah.
first
The whole
anticipated.
album is, I mean, we're talking about a dance record at a club or something like that,
Yeah,
and then we're seeing stuff like this. Even the next track coming up, it it's it's deep as hell. And like I said, lyrics are absurd. They're grotesque in some ways, but he's a
yeah,
smart guy, and
yeah.
he's a very smart songwriter as well.
You talked about this, but the cognitive trade-off hypothesis, the next song, this is probably the biggest change of pace that you get when musically when it comes to the full-length songs on Cave World, at least. And I do find that I like it when they change paces, as we talked about. There's still a lot of energy in the song, even though it's a bit more subdued.
Mhm.
Hypothesis also encapsulates like what Murphy is doing throughout this album lyrically. He
Yeah.
zooms out to look at like the whole of human evolution and looks for explanations for our current state of existence. And while it's like somewhat heady at a conceptual level, in execution, it's usually pretty humorous. And like you said, like if you don't know the band and you're just like, what their name's Viagra Boys, like you're gonna think like, oh, it's kind
People are
of
going
dumb
to
or
think
whatever.
it's going to be
But
silly or something.
yeah, exactly. But like,
Yeah.
all the things that we're saying here, there's way more depth to it. And this one in particular, I think is really when you between the tone of the song combined with the lyrics, this one is actually a little bit more solemn than the rest of the lyrics on the album. At least that's kind of how I hear it.
So the cognitive trade-off hypothesis, it's an actual thing, and you probably were just speaking about this, but he's looking at it like we traded off our detailed short-term memory for like advanced language, abstract thought, and then what was trying to talk about earlier is social collaboration, where I wonder if he was singing this as this is the reason we were like this, and we aren't meant to be crazy over crazy stupid things like uh conspiracy theories and such. Like he's pretty well saying, we're much much better than this. And actually, one of Modest Mouse's most recent singles kind of draw onto this as well, called "Look
Mm.
How Far," which I'm just throwing a plug in there, which is a great single, by the way. But you may like this. Is it just me, or does this sound like a Gorillaz song?
You know what? I can totally
You
hear
hear
that.
Damon Albarn a little bit whenever he gets
Yeah,
in the high pitch, yeah. Because I was
100%.
listening to it and I'm like, "Damn, this is Gorillaz." And then the
Yeah.
whole album is talking about apes and everything too, so which
It's
I know
true.
there's probably no connection, but it does sound like something the Gorillas would put out. I even
I
looked to see if
totally
like
agree with that.
someone was producing it that had produced them or something, but nothing connected.
I'd love to hear Sebastian Murphy featured on a Gorillaz
Gorilla
track.
song?
I don't know why that hasn't
That'd be.
happened.
I mean, we had idols, but I don't.
Yeah, we had Idols, but yeah, we've got to get Sebastian in the mix there. No, that's great. It's a good analysis. And then
Yeah,
we have the next track here, Globe Earth, another Berglund composition
instrumental.
here, right into Ain't No Thief, and Murphy
Damn.
assumes the character of a degenerate thief. This is one of the funniest Viagra Boys songs. I mean, it's just quotable. Like you could quote this for days, and
Oh yeah,
it's so funny.
it's in my opinion, the second heaviest song on the album. Like this
Mm,
song, like I'm just gonna say it. I normally don't say shit like this. It's a banger. I'm just gonna say it. I don't normally say stuff like that, but whenever someone's like, "Oh yeah, it's a total banger," I'm like, I don't hear this, but this, yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
Jordan DeWeese banger approved.
Hey,
Live
join
is
us. Join us. Josh and I drop that all the time. It's a banger. We just go with it. So
it's nothing against
I
it. I
agree. It
just
does. The song
yeah,
hits.
live like is
Mm,
amazing.
I
I
bet.
mean, everybody. I mean, I'm even kind of grooving with it. I do
Yeah.
not want to be in the mosh pit, but yeah,
No.
it's a
Yeah.
wild ride live.
You could probably get a lot of people in the door on this one too. Like this would be a
Yeah,
good first track to like introduce someone to if you know that they're kind of like into that type of music because it does. Again, the lyrics are subversive in that way. Feels funny, feels silly.
yeah.
And then there's obviously this other layer of depth. Speaking of featuring and all of that, we do have a feature on this album with Big Boy featuring Jason
Mhm,
Williamson. And I love that Jason Williamson from the Sleaford Mods is a guest vocalist here. He fits in really nicely with this sound, which honestly like isn't worlds apart from Sleaford Mods music.
mhm.
I like this song a lot. I think it's fun and I don't know. I love Jason Williams' voice. Williamson has this really obviously unique way of singing, and it makes total sense that these two guys would be like share space together. And
Mhm.
I love the collaboration.
Um, so pretty well how this song came together is they were drunk one night and just tried to play like a '70s blues track, and Murphy just came up with the lyrics on the spot, which you can kind of hear that, but it's a
Yeah.
real funky song. Like I love it. It also just doesn't follow the. This is their most cohesive album. Cave World
Yeah.
is out of everything they've released.
Yeah.
This is the most cohesive even their newer record isn't as
Yeah.
cohesive as this one.
I agree.
I mean, yeah. Um, this song really just doesn't fit in with the rest of the songs as much as I think it would thematically. But
Yep.
no, it's still a great track, especially
Yeah.
with Williamson as well.
Yeah, I think that's the reason I like it so much. Hearing those two voices exist together is a lot of fun. But you're right; it is a variation from the everything that you have now. ADD next song, one of my favorite, maybe my favorite Viagra Boys song ever. That electronic groove of this
Mhm,
track just immediately grabs me every time I hear it, and then you have this synthesizer bass line on top of it with this like this cool effect, this cool filter sort of running it through, or I guess it's just the way that the note is shaped in the synth. But it's that combined with those electronic drums is just so cool. And whereas a lot of the songs on Cave World feel like they're critiques of a certain type of individual, this feels a little bit more universal. And I could imagine Sebastian Murphy making this a little bit more autobiographical, a little bit more self-critical, but maybe that's just because I identify with this perspective, and I don't know who that lives in today's world who engages with social media or smartphones or whatever doesn't feel a little bit of that. So I don't know. This one is this one for me is like I will always go back to this song as just like any playlist. They could fit in so many different types of playlists that I would create, but I think this might be my favorite Viagra Boys song.
I love it as well. I don't know if it's my favorite, but I still enjoy it. Just the chanting of attention deficit disorder,
Yeah.
just over and over again. I enjoy that part of the song. He suffers from it, I believe. Like he actually suffers from ADD. Um, he even says like a lot of the times the music kind of comes first before he even writes the lyrics or anything. And he likes that more because it's easier to keep a hold of everything he's trying to write lyrically as the song's being developed and everything. And
Mm.
also on stage, someone asked him like, "Do you carry these personas on stage with you, or is that just you?" He's like, "I'm just trying to memorize lyrics and just be myself on stage." So, but yeah, he is kind of taking shots at himself. But yeah, I don't say I suffer from ADD, but being addicted to
Yeah.
my phone or
Right.
something like that, yeah, it's hard not to kind of feel what he's feeling in a way.
Yeah, you're right, and I should also mention that too. It is very much a more of a vibe thing than me being like
Yeah,
actually have ADD. But I also love the line too. It has a great line, which is
yeah,
my
and the way he
shirt is
sings
wet
it is
because I've been
perfectly.
sweating like a lobster. Um, I think such a funny lyric, and it kind of goes back to like sweating like a lobster is a great line, but it also harkens back to whatever this fascination with like you know, seafood and
Food,
shellfish and like
Steve,
I don't
yeah,
I don't know. It's a
yeah,
real it feels very Bagger Boys ish.
it
Um
does.
and then yeah, so then from there we have Human Error, another
Another one.
composition from Berglund from DJ Hayden or Haydn. Just continue to butcher that. Before we get to Return to Monkey, uh, long song here, but
Hmm.
amazing treatment that they use on the vocals. And this song, like it's psychedelic, electronic, freak out punk song. I don't know, but it's a great way to end an album, and it really puts a bow on the themes of de-evolution. And this is, on the surface, again, it's kind of what you were talking about with like the untrustworthy narrator. It's like, is this guy? Do I agree with this guy, or is this guy making fun of me? It feels on surface level as a call to action to like leave society and be a monkey. But of course, this
Yeah.
is satirical, and it's not that far removed from the type of rhetoric that you'd hear from the corners that Murphy lampoons throughout
Hmm.
throughout Cave World. But I also love the spoken word outro, even if it is a little
Yeah.
perplexing. I have this written down here. Um, a new carpet is installed. A murder takes place in Japan. Someone's head is cut off in an office. The staff do a great job of cleaning. And then I just love it. Like that's his one voice. And you can tell like he has a really composed, almost like newsman type of voice.
Yeah.
But then he goes back to that paranoid sort of like just like shrill hysterical thing where they're killing each other out here, man. I love it. I
Yeah.
love the way that this thing unfolds, and I think it's cool that they give it like nearly 7 minutes just to be like, all right, we're just gonna let this thing cook for a while.
Yeah. This is again another banger. This is one live that you don't want to miss. It is a wild one.
Hmm.
The lyrics in it are funny. Talking about the spoken word there at the end kind of reminds me of the mollusk whenever we weren't given the three ways to call the mollusk from the sea or whatever. Yeah.
Yes, that's right. Yep.
But but no, I love I absolutely love Return to Monkey. He's a big fan of 2001: A Space Odyssey. Like he
Ah,
watches it like 3 times a year.
wow.
And so, I mean, the whole album Cave World, we're pretty well talking about, the de-evolution of man, as you said before, and just
Yeah.
coming from apes and stuff like that. Um, and he's just kind of inspired by like how much the world kind of turned in on itself. And he
Mm.
just kind of had this feeling like during the lockdown and everything, like, yeah, we're pretty well fucked. Like that's just how it is. And he kind of sings to it, singing of people who carry this kind of mentality. to, yeah, just go live in the forest and be a monkey. Like,
Yep.
all we're doing around here is throwing shit at each other and hanging in trees, masturbating. Like, well, those are the lyrics in the song.
Yeah, yeah,
Like,
that's
come.
right. Yeah, no, you're just telling it how it is. No, it's great, and it's interesting about 2001: Space Odyssey. It's funny that was this movie that I'd never watched for the longest time. I'd tried it a few times, and I don't know, maybe I made it through it once in college or something. But 2 or 3 years ago, I was like, I've
Mhm.
always had this one on my list. I'm finally gonna watch it, and I absolutely loved it. I
Great.
thought I was gonna be like, I thought it was gonna be maybe pretentious or difficult or whatever. And I know that some people are like, "Oh, 2001: Space Odyssey," but I totally believe the hype.
Yeah.
I think it's an amazing film. I love it, and it's really cool that he watches it that many times a year.
Oh
But
yeah. I
it
have it
also
on
makes
4K. It
sense.
looks amazing. But
It
yeah,
looks amazing. Yeah, it still
yeah.
looks great.
Um, when he wrote the song, he was kind of inspired by Rage Against the Machine because he said, when I wrote the song, I imagined us playing live, and I pictured people in a crowd completely losing it and turning into monkeys, flying all over the place, throwing shit, taking off their clothes, and but yeah, it's I can kind of see with how the beat and everything goes with this.
Yeah,
I can kind of see that happening.
I could see that
The
too.
shows are
Yeah.
that wild.
Yeah, it does feel like the crowd starts to become. You do have a little bit of the moshing in there, but the crowd just starts to become this one organism that just kind
Yeah,
of like
just kind of
moves
moving
around,
around.
and
Yeah.
it's it's a real cool experience to see them live. If anybody out there is watching this or listening to this because you're a fan of the band and you haven't seen them live, I would definitely make it a point travel to see that one. It's definitely going to be worth it. I wish I'd seen them tour off of this album, but like you did, even or tour off of the new album like you did.
Yeah.
But I was glad I got to see them off of this one because I do think this album is kind of a. I just think there are certain albums that will define an era of music. Again, going back to like class of bands. Another album that we talked about on this podcast a few months ago was Skinty Fia by Fontaines DC, because
Hmm.
it's like I looked at all of their albums and I love all of Fontaines DC albums, and but for some reason Skinty Fia felt like it's like, is this kind of the higher water mark for what they're doing? And it's so hard to say when you're in that, when you're kind of in the middle of a band that's still very vital and still kind of doing really cool things. Who knows
Hmm.
what the story will be 10, 20 years from now? But to do it in real time, it's cool to be kind of plugged into what's going on in this group of bands, because it does feel so alive. And it feels like
Yeah.
this album in particular, I think we will look back at this band and this era of music and be like, this is a defining album of this time. Which
Yeah.
is the reason I wanted to talk about it. But you had brought up talking about Viagra Boys, and we're both just like, I think both of us just want an opportunity to talk about this
So
band as
actually,
much as
yeah.
possible because they're just so much fun.
Speaking about how this, genre of music and everything still feels alive, which when I say this, I don't mean anything against the bands that I truly love,
Yeah,
but this kind of music, every album is going to be a little bit different because they're all trying something different, and
yeah,
it's going to feel fresh each album they release. Like
yeah,
uh Viagra Boys sounds much not totally different vocals and everything, but it sounds different from Cave World. Cave World
yep,
sounds much different from Welfare Jazz, then going all the way back to Worms. Even their EPs and everything, which kind of sampled the energy that they wanted to give, and then as they're releasing their albums, you just get a melting pot of different things. And I've been very grateful with the change in my taste a little bit, and kind of, like you said, being, alive and well in this kind of genre as
yeah,
it's I don't even think it's made its peak yet. And if I'm being
yeah.
honest, yeah, it's just an upward slope.
And I hope not. Like, I hope that these
Yeah.
bands, because I mean, when you look at what they're doing, a lot of these bands I think kind of came to this point where it's like, okay, we've done. I think Vagabond, or I think Fontaine's DC is probably a good example of this, where it's like Their first album is pretty much like, it's kind of like classic punk in a way, like kind of like, and then the second album starts to become a little bit more nuanced and they're kind of going deeper into themselves. And I feel like the Skinty Fee is like the furthest they go into that post-punk world. And then with Romance, their fourth album, a lot of these bands are kind of hitting around that, Shame has had 4 albums, Fontaines DC, Viagra Boys.
Yeah.
And I feel like they hit this point where it's like, well, what do we want to do now? It's like
Yeah.
you've kind of like mined the depths of your voice, and now it's like, where else can we take it? Where can we expand it? And I think some of those bands, I think Fontaines DC did this, and you could make the argument that maybe Shame did this too, which is like, we're gonna maybe look to a little bit more of like rock. Like it's not that it's not punk still. There's still it's like, I always describe this when you talk about, like when I talk about post-punk music, that it's like, if you're making a barbecue sauce, you're going to have the same base as your
Mhm.
sauce. Like some are tomato based and some are vinegar based, right? Like it's like
Yeah.
that. It's like some rock and roll is blues based. The Stones, like they will try out different things, but at the core, the core ingredient is always going to be the blues. And
Yeah.
the post punk, I feel like, has that going on with punk. Like punk is the core; it's the vinegar there. It's the core thing that's going on. So when these bands are venturing out, it's not as if they abandon that completely. But both of those bands in particular, I think, went for something that sounded a bit more. I don't want to call it polished. That makes it sound like I'm saying that they're like not trying and they're not trying to be edgy or whatever. I don't think that's the case at all. I think they both did really interesting things. Viagra Boys, I genuinely have no clue what they will do next, because I wouldn't have predicted Medicine from Horses off of Viagra
Mhm.
Boys. Like I wouldn't have predicted not only that they would do that, but that might be my favorite song on that album. Like
Yeah.
I think it's like I think there's a depth that they can take this if they want to, or they could just have an album of bangers and it's fine. Like it's
Yeah.
like, I'm on board for that. They've put themselves in an interesting position where I think they could go more complex and be more challenging, or they could just have a good time and release a fun record. And I'd be all about that too. I don't know where they're going, and I'm kind of just like all about it. Like whatever they
Excited
got,
for the
I'm
ride.
excited to hear it. Yeah.
Yeah. What if there's like, I don't know, a sequel to Cave World? Because I mean, clearly this was done before the first term of a certain,
Right.
you know,
Certain
cheese
man that
based.
rhymes with frump.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and the second term is just not going well at all.
It is not going well at all. If you wanted to, if you were inspired by what happened before to write an album, like he has to be just
With
like just
this,
going crazy right now, right?
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. Like it's Doug told me a story one time of meeting somebody, and I love America. I'm going to say that I love this country to death. Like the reason I'm saying these things is because I love this country to death.
for sure. Yeah.
Um, it's been my home I've been alive. I've never left this country. But Doug ran into somebody. I don't know if it was somebody that came into the restaurant or what, and they were from Europe, and he was just speaking to him and everything. He's like, I'm just curious, like, how do you guys see us? And the guy's like, well, we're not the greatest. Like, I don't really care from where I'm from. And he says, and he gave me this. He said this guy just kind of like looked down and he's like, God, you guys are fucking crazy. Like,
Not wrong. He's not
not
wrong.
wrong at all.
No, it's a pretty good assessment.
That kind of
Um,
that's an American-born frontman's assessment of his, former country,
yeah,
living in Sweden at
absolutely.
the moment.
Yeah, for sure. It probably feels like a pretty good place to be at the time. So I, I, I'm excited that I'm excited for whatever they put out, and I'm glad that we had a chance to talk about this album. It's so much fun. I think Cave. I mean, I love all 4 of their albums. this might be my favorite, but I love Viagra Boys, and it's still I like how we're both saying it like that too. We're trying to
I
really
think it's
pronounce it as
literally
it's
a
written.
self-titled album,
Yeah, it's
but
a
I like
self-titled
it's on
album.
the album cover, and we'll say it like this.
I'm trying my best to say Viagra
The
Boys,
artist
but
took the time to do that.
exactly. So we're going to try to
Yeah,
respect it. That being said, like a lot of fun, and I think they could go anywhere with it, and I'm all about it. But I
oh, yeah,
appreciate your time. I appreciate you talking to me about it. We're gonna talk. We have more albums. Obviously, we do deep dives on albums. We have other random small conversations. But if you're out there and you're listening to this, tell us your thoughts on Cave World. Where does this rank for you? Where does Viagra Boys sit with the whole class of post punk bands that we were talking about? Have an album that you want us to talk about in relation to any of this stuff, or not? We want to hear from you. Leave a comment. Subscribe to the channel is probably the thing you could do to help us out the most. Of course, if you're out there in podcast world, follow us and then like the video. All the things that people say when they wrap up these videos, they say them for a reason because it really does help. Jordan, thanks for doing this, man. I appreciate it, and
thank
we'll
you.
talk again soon.
All hail the shrimp in the sky.